Hi everyone, I've got a bike in today where they've had quite a knock. They've damaged the derailleur itself, but as you can see here, the gear hanger is really bent out of shape. Now in one of my recent videos, I show you how to straighten the gear hanger. So do look at my video for that if you want to see how to do that. However, for this one, this is so bent out of shape. If I bent it back, yep, it might happen without snapping, but this is such a soft, pliable metal. This metal now is just going to keep bending back and forth. And for the sake of a tenner or less, it just makes more sense just to replace the hanger. And the derailleur itself, well, as you can see, is completely damaged and done in. So we're going to replace the derailleur, the gear hanger, the chain as well, because that's kinked out of place, and of course the gear cable. And you can see we've got those four components over in the distance. So enough for me, let's get to work. Okie dokie, the first thing we're going to need to do is to cut the gear cable. Now because we're getting rid of the derailleur, we don't need to remove the gear cable from this bolt here. Actually, I've already cut the cable, so I can just pull this through and be good to go. Just make sure that your cable isn't internally routed, as in inside the tube, either here or travelling from the bottom bracket up to the handlebars. If it is internally routed, don't just pull the cable through, because you might struggle to get the new cable back through the entry and exit points. Sometimes they're skinny. If it is internally routed, have a look at my other videos and I'll show you how to do that. But for this one, we're good to go. So we're cutting the cable. We can just get rid of that now. This outer cable, it's missing the end ferrule. The previous customer obviously has lost that at some point. So I might actually just replace this outer cable at another point before putting it all back together. But we will decide for that in a moment. So the next job is to remove the derailleur, the gear hanger and the chain. If we do the chain first, it would just be easier to remove the derailleur. And again, as I said, we're going to be replacing the chain anyway. Now, the chains often have a master link, which is two quick release parts that can, just move this down a little bit, that can be removed quite easily. Otherwise, you're going to have to get a chain brake tool to push the one of the rivets through. Now, this actually, God, this is really poor. Look at that. Really caught up. Okay, this is the master link I'm talking about here. So you can use a particular tool to remove that. They look like a reverse set of pliers, and they just go either side of the master link. And then if you squeeze together fairly strong, the two will separate. Just be careful they don't ping away. There we go. If you don't have a master link, you're going to need one of these tools, which will push through one of the many rivets on the chain. This one's a bit more in focus. It will push it through and enable you to break the chain. Nevertheless, I've got another video showing you how to do that, so have a look at that if you need to. What we're going to do now then is pull this chain through and then whip the derailleur off. Don't be tempted to keep the master links as spares, particularly on a very worn chain like this one. These really are only a one-time use thing. They're very cheap anyway to buy online, so yeah, don't save your pennies. I love to keep things and reuse them as much as possible for the environment and for everything else, but these, they're for going in the bin. Okay, the chain is off, but we're not going to throw it away just yet, because we're going to size the new chain to this one. Then it's a case of getting a 5mm hex or Allen key in most cases. Whip that off. When it comes to removing the gear hanger, you will see that it's interfered with by the long bolt that is holding the wheel to the bike. In this case, it's a quick release skewer. And also in this case, it's lost its end part, which you can't quite see at this angle, but it's actually quite kinked in as well. So I suspect the skewer is bent and buckled. So we're probably going to put a new skewer in as well. Not necessary, but I'm just going to do it because, hey, let's do a proper job. So we need to get this wheel off. Now that the wheel's off, we can get our hex or Allen key again. In this case, it's exactly the same again, 5mm. They're nearly always 5mm. And in fact, a lot of bolts on bikes are 5mm. So you buy yourself one of these 5mm spanners and you're going to be able to do a lot of your work. Now, I said earlier on about not throwing things away unnecessarily. These are the retainer nut and bolt for the gear hanger we just removed. I like to keep these because if the threads aren't knackered, they're really helpful just to keep in your parts bin. This one, however, that's definitely going in the bin, can't be salvaged. In the bin it goes. New gear hanger is going on. The retaining nut we put through on this side, hang the derailleur on, and then we can finger tighten the bolt in place so it doesn't go anywhere, and then we can get our bolt and tighten this up. Now with the nut on the other side that you can't see, there is a recess for putting in a long bladed screwdriver, but I find actually if you tighten this side and just hold your finger over the nut to begin with, they usually bite into each other relatively easily and then tighten themselves. So it doesn't need to be stupidly tight because obviously things are going to be held on by the skewer or the bolt anyway, but it makes sense to do it up relatively tight so there's no shaking, no rattling and no issue. Right then, now that's done, we'll get the wheel back on and replace that skewer possibly as well, but and then we can get to work. Well, I've managed to find the right length skewer just knocking about in my parts bin. It's completely straight as an arrow. It's got a few abrasions this side and the other, just cosmetic really. But it's great, and that's why I don't chuck things away unnecessarily, because the customer will be happy. I'm obviously not going to charge them, and it means they haven't got a bent skewer. So things are back on. What I've noticed as well is the Dork disc. Basically it's a chain guard to prevent the chain coming off the end of this larger sprocket if the gears are incorrectly set up, and then getting caught, not the chain necessarily, but the derailleur arm getting caught in the spokes. So it's always good to keep hold of these if you think your gears may not be set up properly or if you're worried about it, but often they are brittle and they crack. In this case, it's not actually cracked at the moment. So what I'm going to try and do is to put it back on again for the customer. Now you'll see there's a few clips. There's 4 clips here, and they basically get clipped around the spokes, but they all need to be done at the same time. So it's a bit fiddly, but great fun if you can manage it. Okay, I think we're about there. If I bring this one down, how's that looking? Yeah, let's undo that one as well then. Right, so this is now completely loose, but you'll see all these clips are about to click into every individual spoke. So assuming they're all into place, it's now a case of moving this round anti-clockwise, and it should, each of these should just go click. There we go, 1, 2, that one's in, 3, 4. So hopefully that now won't move. Oh, there we go, brilliant, in place. Excellent. As I say, a lot of people get rid of these, and again, I've got a video on my channel about the Dork disc. Do you need it? What's its purpose? And can you live without it? But anyway, now this isn't broken, it's certainly not perished, and it's clicked in place. Let's leave it on. Now, we've got to put on the new derailleur. It's a really simple process. The one thing you need to make sure you do, though, is to make sure the B screw, which I'll explain a bit more about later on, the B screw comes above here. So it's going to be this way round, the derailleur, and normally it's going to be hanging around about here. But when we fit it, we're going to be bending it all the way up here. Again, because on the opposite side, this here, this B screw, needs to finish the end point, oops, on camera, the end point needs to be above here. So we need to be bending the derailleur around quite a way. What I like to do is to make sure you've got some purchase on the threads. Sometimes you're going to have to pull this arm back in order to make that possible. So we're going to get things into place. There we go, the threads are aligned. I just looked off camera. So we're going to start tightening in, and there we go. We're bent right up at the moment, again for that purpose, for that reason. I'll try not to keep hitting the camera. Once it's tightened, you'll know. Now, can you see this whole derailleur going up and down? That's because there's no tension of the chain holding things down perfectly, but you want that to happen. If things aren't doing that and then clicking into place, that's your B screw is down here somewhere and it's not connecting with that lip I showed you. So that's a good sign. And then of course this is going to get pulled down under the force of the chain and going to hold everything in place. If I just bend this camera down, if you know this already, you can skip this part of the video, but with the chain, this derailleur arm is going to be under tension the whole time to about here, under massive spring tension. That's what you want. That's what you want. Otherwise, your chain will go really slack when it goes onto the smaller sprockets. There we go. Okay, so that's in place. Now it's a case of getting that chain. Do you remember earlier on I said keep the old chain? I'm going to move the camera to the floor of the workshop and show you how we size up, very professionally, the new chain to the old one. Right, there we have it. You've got the two chains, one beside the other. Excuse my feet. But what we have here is the two matching ends of chains here. When I say matching, I mean we've got two female ends as opposed to a male end, which would have a rivet poking out. If you have got a rivet poking out on your new chain, that's fine. I'm going to show you how to sort that out again in a moment. But hopefully you've gone through a chain which is slightly higher market to match the one you've taken off, which has a master link. Master links are much better. Anyway, you're going to match like for like, and then you're going to bring the two chains down, match them link for link. If your chain you're getting off, which is the one to your left, has been on the bike a long time and it's done lots of miles, you'll notice the chain is worn. Other people say stretched because the chain will be slightly longer. The gap between each of the rivets, the links if you like, just slightly increases by a millimetre, not even that. But over 100 or so links, that multiplies across the length of the chain. So as you go down, just make sure one chain isn't overtaking the other. Just match up those links all the way along. And then when you've got to the very end, you will see that one chain is noticeably longer than the other. I may have just said that the old chain was on the left, I meant on the right. So there we go, that's where it's matched up. So this is where we need to cut. I'm going to make a mental note of that. I'm going to move the camera and I'm going to show you how to cut the chain here so the new one matches the length of the old one. Okay, so I've used my chain break tool to cut the chain at exactly the point I needed it, so it's matching the same length as the one we've taken off. And I'm using a master link, remember, so I can have two female ends. However, if you didn't have that and your chain requires you to keep the pin, you would have used your tool to push the pin almost all the way through, but not completely, and then you can drive that pin back through when the chain is back on the bike to match the two ends together. Anyway, hopefully you've gone for a master link version of chain because they're far more versatile and usually a much higher quality of chain. Right then, let's get back on the bike. This is really quite a simple process. Just make sure you follow the right procedure and you'll be able to do this with your eyes shut in no time. So we're going to bring the chain down. Obviously, we're going to fit it inside the front derailleur here. Make sure it doesn't go this side, whoops, or the other side, because you're going to have to start again if you do. And then, just like you've seen with the chain coming loose, it does work under gravity against you. But anyway, get enough of the chain through here so it doesn't roll back through and come out. And on this side, make sure you get rid of any kinks or what might seem like it's knotted up. It won't be. You just need to adjust things correctly. Now we're going to go round the sprockets here. We're going to go under this jockey wheel, the one that's closest to the gear hanger. We're going to go under. You can see there's a bit of a lip here. Make sure it goes this side of the lip, not that side. Otherwise the chain is going to get caught up around here. And then we're going to go over here. So it's going to be an S, folks. We're going to go S, S, and S. And then it's going to come all the way around the outer here and get pulled all the way down to the other end. So around this sprocket. And then pull the chain through. There we go. Around the first jockey wheel or pulley wheel. We're then going to go under here. You can pull this arm down, remember. There we go. And in fact, if you bend it all the way around, gravity could be your friend to help it round. And it's a little bit fiddly, but nothing too horrendous. Nothing like a live video, is there? Okay, here we go. There we go. So that's coming round nicely. So again, we're going round, round this side of that point, that metal point just here, and around here. And then joining the two other ends up is actually quite good fun, but you're going to need a couple of tools just to hold the chain in place so it doesn't ping away into your face or across the workshop. And this is my highly expensive tool in order to prevent that pinging. We're going to hook this piece. You could even just use an old piece of wire coat hanger if you like, and we're going to hook this part of the chain. We're then going to pull this part of the chain up as well. Now you'll see the two don't reach, but remember we've got some tension on the derailleur arm so we can pull things through. And you're just going to marry these two up with a bit of play at the bottom. I know we're a little bit off camera. Let's bring this down a little bit. There we go. And then you get your master links. Having this here, guys, just means you don't have to faff about holding on to things and having an extra pair of hands in need. Pop the master links on, and then you just marry the two together like that. But that isn't then clicked in, and you probably won't be able to do it by hand. Instead, you're going to use your chain breaker tool that we had earlier on to separate the master links to rejoin them up. Great job, Matt, well done. So you'll see that you can't actually pull them apart away from each other without using that tool. So we're going to get that chain break tool from earlier on. Sometimes, oops, there we go, literally just done it. Sometimes you separate the master links when trying to put them back together. It's no big drama, particularly with this small piece of wire holding things in place. But you're going to get your chain breaker on the outside of the master link, and then we're going to pull apart. And that looks like it is done, but it isn't. It's a bit hard to show on the camera, but there's still a bit of a gap here. You need to pull quite hard. There we go, and then it's in place. And I said earlier on about keeping parts and not keeping parts and chucking away the master link. If I was to get the old master link, it wouldn't have done that real positive click into place. Master links wear almost as soon as you put them on the chain. So they are a one-time use or a one chain use master link, I'm afraid. Okay, we can whip this off. And that now means that we are in place with our chain and the derailleur and the gear hanger. However, there's a bit more to do because we need to obviously now put the new gear cable on, but we also need to align the derailleur. Derailleurs, exactly the same as chains where you cut them to length, derailleurs need to be adjusted for the particular bike they're going on because these are adaptable to a whole range of sprockets, and this is also a 7 and 8 gear derailleur. It's an 8-speed bike, so we need to adjust that as well. It's really not hard, and I'll take you through that process right now. Okay, so we obviously need to remove the old gear cable, and every gear shifter, guys, is completely different. So please don't think that this is going to be your shifter and how it works for your bike, because it might be completely different. But in this case, I've got a retainer bolt here. It's kind of like a weather cap to prevent water ingress into the shifter's components. We're going to remove that, pull the cable through, put the cable in, and whip it all the way to the front. Again, I'm not going to show you that actual process because almost certainly your shifter is going to be different anyway. But depending on what your shifter is, I've almost certainly got a video showing you how to replace the cable for your shifter on my channel. If not, drop me a line and I'll upload a video for you. Okay, the cable is now routed all the way round. I haven't attached it to the derailleur yet, and I'll explain why. What we need to do first is to make sure the derailleur is correctly calibrated to this bottom sprocket. You might remember a moment ago I said this is a derailleur that works with 7 and 8 speed bikes. As a result, then there's going to be a lot of adjustment. Now, 3 screws. This is the B screw. In nearly all cases, you won't need to adjust the B screw, so we're going to leave that for now. But you've also got a H and an L screw. H is for high gears, so the L, you've guessed it, is for low gears. What this does is they are limit screws, and they allow the derailleur to travel this far, or not far enough, and then indeed to come this far. So the L screw is for the lowest gear, which confusingly is the highest, tallest sprocket. So the lowest gear, L gear, is this one for going up the hills. What you need to do is make sure that limit screw is correctly positioned. Otherwise, in theory, the chain could be pulled too far this way, get stuck between the sprockets and the spokes, which is why you have this guard, and potentially cause a whole heap of trouble. So that's the L limit screw. The H limit screw is what we want to set up first, because that aligns the chain under no tension, so no cable attached, with the smallest sprocket. The chain at the moment is on the final gear but one, so that's gear 7 of 8. So we're going to start pedaling, and you will see that the chain falls into that smallest sprocket, the highest gear, by itself. What we need to do though is make sure that there is a perfect alignment, and it might be a bit tricky to do this with the camera. Let me just take it off the stand, excuse the wobbliness, but hopefully you can see down here that the derailleur itself is slightly too much to the right hand side, not massively, but just a little bit. What I'm going to do is pop this back in, and I'm going to show you how the screw works. Again, on my channel I've got a video all about the high and low limit screws and the V screw, so you can properly align it yourself. But for the purpose of the video, I'm just going to show you what happens. So this is the H screw. If I remove tension by going anti-clockwise, this arm is going to travel to the right, hopefully. Can you see it moving? There we go. And similarly, if I tighten it, it travels all that way over. So you need to make sure that yours is perfectly in line with this bottom gear. Of course, if it's not, then you're going to be having this sort of noise. Oh, actually, look, it's travelled up the wrong gear already. That's a perfect example. So if I loosen this, it will fall back down or rattle. There we go. So you need to get that one perfectly set up. Once you've done that, you can then attach your gear cable. So I think with my fiddling, I've taken it a bit too far over one way. I think that's about right. So what I'm going to do is attach the cable to the bolt here, and hopefully it'll be the right tension. Just from experience, I tend to put a bit of tension with my thumb, hold it in place and tighten up. But before we do that, we're just going to tighten these barrel adjusters. I've used plural because usually you've got one at your shifter end as well. And I like to screw in the barrel adjuster as far as I can, clockwise, righty-tighty, and then come off a full turn and a half, maybe 2 turns. So that's about 3 twists to a turn. So that's one full rotation. That's another full rotation or thereabouts. It just allows for a bit of play, because the way I do these things up is a bit of guesswork. So you can see I put a bit of tension here. Hopefully we'll get this right first time. We're going to attach the bolt here to the cable. Not massively tight, but hopefully that will hold it in place. Okay, let's see if I'm on the money. I think so. Sounds good. So I'm going to, off camera probably, use my shifter to go to gear 7. And it hasn't moved quite enough. If it hasn't moved quite enough, you can go anti-clockwise a bit more to add tension. So although anti-clockwise is lefty-loosey, you're actually increasing the gap between this point and this point, meaning you're going to be stretching the cable. We've already taken this out a full turn. The barrel adjuster at the shifter end hasn't moved at all. So I'm going to be moving that anti-clockwise just off camera up here, and hopefully we'll see this will fall into gear 7. So I'm twisting, and that's about 1 full turn. There we go. So full turn, it's in place. I'm going to shift back down to 8. Look at that. So let's go to 7, and then 6, 5, 4. Now you remember that the L screw for the low gear hasn't been set up yet, so you need to be careful that it doesn't go too far. But I think almost certainly it's going to stop us getting into gear 1. So this is go to gear 2. Yeah, it's already stopped me. I can't actually move enough to get into 2. So this is a perfect example for me now to show you. Keeping in gear 3, I'm going to remove the L screw. Oops, bash the camera. Just going to remove the tension on the L screw. Now if I go to gear 2, it should go. There we go. Have I done enough to allow it into gear 1? Let's find out. No. In fact, the shifter won't even move at all. So I'm going to take this out more. But again, if you remember, we don't want too much because we don't want the chain to come off the other side. It actually won't because we've set the cable up correctly already, but I'll show you what we can do. So let's go to gear 1 now. Hopefully it's enough. It's still not enough actually. It wasn't a positive click. So on the shifter, no positive click. So we can take this out a little bit more. There we go. Okay, let's try again. Go to 1. That's on. Okay, that's on 3. No, it's not. That's on 3. That's on 2. Yeah, we're not quite there, are we? Let's go back down to 8 and see how we're doing. 7, 6. Yeah, we need a bit more tension there. So that bound adjuster at the shifter end. There we go. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and let's see if we can get to 1. We can. Now that bit is sorted, essentially the gears are now set up. But if I push on my shifter, can you see the derailleur still wants to move a bit more? I'll just check you can see that. Yeah, you can. So it still wants to move a bit more, which means if there was too much tension on the cable by adjusting this barrel adjuster or the shifter end too much, it means this could be thrown over, and that's where the Dork disc comes into play, or more crucially, that's where damage to the bike comes into play. So by doing that, we can tighten the L screw in a little bit, and it's finding the sweet spot, still moving. It's finding a sweet spot between removing that play, but still allowing the shifter to click properly into gear 1. Right, that play's gone. So let's go down to 2. And then that's pushed for gear 1 again. There we go, we're in place. And there's no movement, a very, very fractional movement, but we'll leave that there. So I think we're in business. Let me just cut this cable. I don't really want to get that to get caught in the jockey and pulley wheels. We'll just crimp this off. Hopefully you can see this on camera by using an end cap. And you can buy a very special crimping tool, which probably costs you 20 quid, or you can just use a pair of pliers, wire cutters, just to crimp off the end. There we go. Right. Let's have one more go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and hopefully 8. No rattling. 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 with no extra play on the end. So we are in business. Now there's a bit more to do on the bike because I've got to adjust the gears for the front derailleur and other bits as well. But in terms of the bike here, folks, you're all sorted. What we have done to remind us is we have removed the gear hanger, derailleur, chain and gear cable. We've then also, as an extra, replaced the skewer with one that was lying around that but was perfect condition. We've added the ferrule end cap to make sure this outer cable is pucker. Before putting the wheel back on, we have also sorted out the Dork disc, but we have fitted the gear hanger, wheel back on, and then fitted the derailleur, the chain, the gear cable, and then set up the derailleur perfectly for the bike. All of these videos are separate how-tos on my channel, but it's nice doing one thing all in one take. As you know from my videos, I like to keep as much as possible. I like to repair and not replace, but this gear hanger was absolutely right to be replaced because the other one really had it. I think that's about it, guys. I'm going to leave you alone. We are job done. I'm going to go and enjoy test driving this bike, and then I'm going to get on to the other parts of it. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like, please subscribe to the channel. Obviously, I don't get paid for doing it, but I love doing it. I love helping others out. I'd appreciate a thumbs up. And that's us done. Take care. Look after yourselves. I'll see you next time.